Greetings everyone, welcome to Just Advance. This game was played in the FIDE Swiss 2025, and with the white pieces we have the magician Divya Deshmukh. Yesterday she played a spectacular game against Basim Amin and was able to absolutely crush that game to victory. And today she's facing an Uzbek player. His name is Shamsiddin Vokhidov, and yeah, this is going to be a tough round because she's playing in the tournament which has an average rating of 2600. You can understand how tough these games are, and it takes a toll on you. But when you want that experience, when you want to win, this is how you do it. And she's setting up a perfect example and playing in the best of the field. So without further ado, let's start with this game. Here with the white pieces, she goes for d4. We have knight to f6, c4, e6, and knight to c3. She go into the she This is basically just the nimzo. We have bishop to b4. Now just queen to c2, d6, and now just e3. d6 is the classical variation of the nimzo, so you have to be a little bit careful here. Castles, but now just comes bishop to d3, c5, and d captures. Bishop caps on c5, knight to f3, and just d5. This is the main line here, just a3. Now trying to go for b4, but in this position just a6 was played. a6 is not a good move in this position, and she takes advantage of this. She goes for space, she goes for b4, and now you have to push the bishop back. Bishop, where do you move the bishop back? Instead moving the bishop back, he goes for d captures, which is a very nice line, because now either you just take and I move the bishop back, or what can you do? Well, there is one line that you can do in this position, which is this bishop captures on h7. It's a crazy line because after knight captures you play this, and yes, this comes to try and go for your pawn, but you have this very nice resource, knight to e4. And now what even do you do in this position? If you try to just move away my knight with f5, then just comes this knight to d6, and I'm loving my knight there on d6. But again, b5, you have to go for en passant. Here just knight captures, opens up an attack towards the knight. I capture, I trade, and I have this position where there it's 4 to 3 against the king side and 1 to 2 against the queen side. So you have to be a little bit careful in these kinds of positions. But I think she would have absolutely enjoyed this position. You can get the bishop into the game. Maybe you can just castle, get the rook into the game. Your position is absolutely fine. There is no issues. Engine still gives it a draw, a little bit of an advantage towards black, but still I don't think that matters that very much. But here after d captures, we have bishop captures, not going for all of those things right from the opening. You want to have first positional advantage, then you want to have some advantage on the clock, then you want to have tactical advantage, and then when all of these combined, you can have a decent advantage. Then you pounce on and you win the game. But here just bishop to a7, and bishop to a7 is something that I never like in nimzo, because I've always seen players try to go for this, try to get the bishop towards that and fiend keto this bishop to try and attack towards the king side. But the problem is, this is theoretically this is not a good move. Engine might not hate that very much, but theoretically whenever we see nimzo, we always see that whenever you push for a3, the bishop is attacked, bishop always go back to e7. When you try to mess with the positional ideas, your position just becomes worse. And we saw this game actually in Singfield Cup, where Gukesh played against Prague, and Prague was able to win the game after Gukesh went for this bishop to a7 line. But it's just not something that I like personally. But here just bishop to d3 now, just trying to get those bishop pair very active and get those bishop pair from hell. And we have knight bd7, bishop to b2, and just b5. b5 is a very nice move in this position, because now it doesn't allow b5 to push for white and hit, but you can destabilize the position with a4. And the idea is, after b captures, you castle, bishop to b7, you go for rook captures, bishop captures. It looks good, but after g captures, you can understand I'm just going to move the king away, and I'm going to have very nice rook on the g file. I already have the bishop pair, I already have the rook on the fourth rank. Maybe I can sacrifice and get the rook all the way over here and start an insane attack, and that's something that I absolutely like, and I think Divya would have liked as well. She's a really aggressive attacking player, and she loves these kinds of position, and I think this is her forte. This is the position that she would have absolutely enjoyed and tried to push for a win. But it's not like this is the position that you would have actually reached. There could be some complications, and those complications I think she did not like. That's why she decided not to go for this. But after b5, we have knight to g5, immediately trying and going for an attack. And we have h6 now, only move, otherwise you just lose the pawn. So here now just going for this knight to h7. That's crazy move, but you could go for a move like h4, but you have to understand this is not blitz, this is classical. You cannot actually survive this, and obviously you cannot capture. If you capture, h captures, h captures, you understand what's going to happen. Now knight needs to move, and once this check comes, you move, hit this, and unfortunately this would be a checkmate. A very nice thing that you can try in your own games as well. But after h6, we have knight to h7, and now what do? Either you trade like the opponent did, and after bishop captures, you have to move the king. Now bishop goes back with tempo, attacking the rook. Rook needs to move, and now you get this position where your bishop is on the absolutely central file, just taking a look at everything here. This bishop is an absolute monster, and this is what you want in your position. You want absolute monsters. Here rook to d1 was played, just attacking the queen, but now just comes queen to e7, knight to e2, and now e5, taking away those vital squares from the knight. But just queen to c7, saying that you want to take away knight's places from my knight, just handle my queen. Now your bishop is under attack, you have to move it. So bishop to b6. Now just your rook is defended, you don't have to worry about it. And if you go for a move like queen to d6, which looks very very nice, the trouble is after queen captures and rook captures, you get this position which is not that bad. Knight to f6 comes now, just trying to just get that knight out of the way, because you want to be able to develop the bishop. So here bishop to b1, bishop all the way back, because that bishop was not just under attack, it was that you want the bishop pair to now try and go for a win. And after rook to e8, you just castle, get the rook into the way. And also you have to play this rook move, because now you wanted to defend the pawn, and there could be some very nice ideas in this position. So not going for this, because now instead she decides to keep the queens on the board, because that's another way to attack. You want the queens on the board with the bishop pair to try and attack with the knight. So here in this position, after bishop to b7 was played, we have bishop to f5. Bishop to f5 is such a Divya move, saying that I don't want to draw. You want to capture my pawn, well, just go right ahead. I'm just going to get the rook into the game. I might be able to trap your bishop as well. And now somewhere along the way, I'm going to try and fight it out till the very end, because I'm here to get those experience of winning before the candidates. I'm here to push for actually going to become the world chess champion, and that comes only by fighting it out, not going for draws. And that's the mindset that you want to live by, the way this genius prodigy Divya Deshmukh is living by. And bishop to f5 is a move that is a very risky move, because you have to understand those bishop pairs are going to be very now powerful. And you wanted to go for a draw, you could have gone for a draw here. Bishop captures, rook captures, castles, and this is a very boring line that no one would actually want to play, because now rook to d8 comes, and yeah, you don't have much. And that's the reason why she decided not to go for this. But after bishop to f5, I mean, what do you do even in this position here? Rook to b8 was played by her opponent, and now castles. And yeah, castles is a very fine move in this position, because now you want to be able to develop the knight and here correct the rooks, and absolutely you do everything with just one move. That's what you want to do. Here rook f to e8 was played, and you still have the pressure, but how long can you have the pressure? Because now queen to c2, very nice move, but now just comes knight to f6, and you have to understand that move g6 is coming to ruin the influence of this bishop, and you have to understand where do you will develop the knight. You don't have that many squares to develop the knight. And also this knight move was also very important, because knight to f4 could have come in any position, because now you cannot capture. Once the queen was there, you had some mating chances, so that was the idea. But now once you actually go for queen to c2, and knight cannot jump in now because of this knight to f6 move, so everything is just like you have to try and grind it out. Now knight to g3 was played by Divya. This is the best move in this position, but just g6, and now you have to trade. You cannot go back. If you go back, then just pawn push, and yeah, your position just is not that good as you wanted it to be. Bishop to e3 now, bishop to e4 now, and just knight captures. You've lost the bishop pair. Now your opponent has the bishop pair, and you have to be a little bit careful in this position, because bishop to d5 was played by her opponent, trying to just centralize the bishop and also ask a waiting move. Are you still going for a draw, or are you still going for a win? Well, Divya says, I don't give actually anything about the result. I want to be able to go for a win, and that's exactly what she does. In this position, you could go for a very silly draw here by going for a move like knight to c5, but that's not the mindset of these genius prodigies. What they do is basically they live and breathe to try and go for a win, to try and grind out every game, to try and go for that highest point in their life. And that's exactly what they're going for. They want that experience, they want to win games, they're not here for draws. If you go for knight to c5, that's a draw. Bishop captures, pawn captures, and you have to understand this line. You cannot do anything in this position. Even if you cannot even go for a move like f5, because your king is just very very weak. But even if you don't play this, let's say you play a move like queen to e6, now you can get the rook into the game, and you can attack those isolated pawns. But the problem is, this is at best is a draw because of this opposite colored bishops, and you're not going to be able to like this. But here after bishop to d5, she plays one of the most daring moves I've ever seen, because now no one really goes for these kinds of moves. The problem is, even I'm not that daring to be able to try this in a real game, but that's what these genius prodigies are doing. Hey, just f4. And f4 is a crazy idea to try and complicate things, because the best move in this position is actually the one that you think that is, which is this bishop captures. But I think she was hoping for a little bit of a mistake by her opponent, and if he had done that, she would have had a spectacular position, because now this is a different kind of way to try and go for a draw, because now you just push you just capture it, king moves, and now just comes this bishop captures on here, queen captures, and now you have to understand that there is bishop to d4. Now here you're just a pawn down, and what do you have in return? Well, the thing is, now even now you can go for a draw, but she was hoping if her opponent didn't find all of this. But absolutely, I mean, you cannot just expect all of these things to happen every single time, everything for you, and that's not the way that things go. But the thing is that, like, even if he's able to find this, I still have this very nice move, which is this rook captures on d4. And the thing is, now you go for this e captures, and problem is just bishop captures on d4, and it is a very nice move in this position. Now you have to move the king away, king moves, and now queen captures, rook captures, and now just comes bishop to f6, and now you're just getting the exchange back. The structure is very similar, and she knew that she had this in the position. That's why she decided to go for f4 in the position, because she wanted to try and push for a win. And yeah, that's the way to play chess. Try and grind out every game and try to go for a win instead of draws. Draws will never help you attain anything in life. Losses will help you attain a lot more things than any wins or draws ever will. So that's the thing to keep in mind. Hey, just bishop did not go back there, but hey, just rook e to d7 was played, bishop captures, rook captures, and you get this position, which is most likely at the best play. It's a draw. But what she wanted to go for in this position was, you have to be really careful. She was just down to 30 seconds on the clock, and she was calculating all these lines, trying to go for complications, trying to go for wins here, because with the white pieces you want to win. But here in this position, the problem is it's a dead draw, because the structure of the pawns are very much similar. You don't even have like isolated pawns, pawn islands, more pawn islands. They're just two pawn islands, and it's by both the plays, and it's very difficult to try and go for complications. But she still tries to go for complications in this position. You could go for complications by going for a very nice move with f5, and f5 is a very beautiful move, because now the problem is, now just comes this very nice rook to d3, trying to go for the a pawns. And yes, you could go for rook to a1, but not in this line, because now the trouble is just this captures, and yes, you're just winning a complete pawn. So what you want to do is f captures, and you could still go for rook to a1. The composition is a complete draw, but you could go for a very nasty line with rook to c1. After rook caps on a3 comes, now you go for king to g1, rook to a4, and just rook goes here. I'm targeting a lot of those pawns, and yes, that can be defended. If you don't defend it and you just capture, yes, this is a very nice draw. Right after this captures, I'm able to hold this very easily. But the trouble is, now you can actually go for king to g7, and after king to f2, now just comes rook captures, and this rook to b2 check, and most likely at best this is a +1 advantage. So you're just up a pawn basically, and up a pawn with the rook getting there, you're most likely able to hold this position to a draw. But what happened is, after rook caps on d8 was played, she got into a long think. She had like 4 seconds on the clock. She had to push for something in this position, and she wanted to create this complication, but she got messed up in the move placement. She messed up the order of the moves that she was supposed to play, and she played king to g1 first. And king to g1 first is a really, like, quoting the Star Wars, it's a trouble in the force, because now the problem is rook to d3, and rook to d3, now f5 does not work, and she still needs to go for 4 more moves to try and reach time control. But she goes for f5 nonetheless, and the problem is, how do you sustain in this position? Because now, hey, g5 is a very nice move. Her opponent took 6 minutes but was able to find this g5 move. Rook to c1, now rook to c1 with the same idea of going with the different line, but unfortunately in this it just doesn't work out with this order. In that order it worked out perfectly, and you would be able to hold your opponent to a draw. But this doesn't go for a draw, and that happens for a very specific reason that I'm about to tell you. But still, she needs to make 2 more moves to try and reach time control. So let's see what happens here. Rook caps on a3, but just rook to c6 now, king to g7 defending everything, and this is the problem with this position. Here king to f2 was played by her to try and go for something in this position. Now she has understood that it might just not be a draw, but now just comes rook to a4, and it's a difficult position now to hold. The best move she played in this position, even while trying to just complicate things, she wanted to complicate things with f5, and she did that almost very close, gotten very close. If you had gone for that line, if her opponent made even just a little bit of mistake, she would be trying to go for a win with the white pieces, but she forgot the move order, and I think that's what caused all of this. Because now just comes I don't think I know that's what caused all of this, because now the trouble is that you cannot do anything else in this position. The only try and go for a draw in this position is actually h4, and she finds it. The trouble is with h4, if you play a silly move like g4 in this position, h5 comes, and now it's going to be a draw no matter what you do. Let's say you play rook captures, but the thing is that now I don't capture First, I give a check with f6 once the king goes back. This is a blockade that I wanted to create. Now I go rook caps on a6, and now I can gobble up this pawn as well, put the rook behind the pass pawn, and my position is most likely going to be a draw. And this is what she was trying to do. But with h4, there is a move that you could play, which is this rook captures on g4, and now captures does not help you. So here, just king to f3 was just king to f3 was played, but now just comes this h5, and none of this happened here. He just took. So yeah, this is not there is not much that you can do now. King to f4 was played by her. This is a decent move, but now if you are able to get the king there, then you have something in this position. But he shuts it off with f6, and now it's going to be a little bit difficult. You cannot even give a check because the check doesn't do anything in this position. So hey, just king to f3 was tried, but just rook caps on b4. Now just comes rook caps on a6, rook to b2, and rook goes here to try and stop these pawns. And you look at this position and you feel like, how is this not a draw? I mean, I can just put the rook behind the pass pawn and still, it could be a draw. But no, this is not a draw. Here b4, rook to d4, and now just going for this rook caps on h4. Now you're grabbing one of those pawns, but just this king to g5, and you have to defend the rook. So here just g3, rook to b1, and now just comes king to g2. If you allow the check to happen, then just pawn pushes with immediate effect. Rook b3 was played, rook to f4, and just b2, but just rook to b4. Now you have to put the rook behind the pass pawn, king caps on f5, and now that's why it's not a draw, because it's 2 against 1, and all you have to do is push one and try and go for the victory here. King to h2, but now just comes this king to e6, king to g2, f5, but now just comes this rook to b6 check, king to d5, rook to b5 check, king to c6, and rook to b3. But now just comes a very nice way to try and go for the win, which is this h4. G captures f4, now just pushing the pawn. f3 was played by her opponent, and now what can you do in this position? The trouble is, if you capture, then this comes with the check. Next move I promote. So that's why king to f2 could have been played, but now after king to d5, the trouble is, after you push h6, now you have this rook to h1, and rook to h1 is a very, very nasty move, because now after rook caps on b2, you have this rook to h2 check, king captures, and now rook captures, and now you're not in time because rook can get in time there. So after this f3, hey, just king caps on f3 was played by her, maybe just trying to push those pawns, but just rook to f1 checking moves, and now just going for this rook captures. Maybe you can try and hope to promote, but just h6 and king to d7. It was on this move, on just move 63, that she resigned the game. And I mean, she played this game flawlessly, absolutely flawlessly, just until the one thing that she forgot, the move order. Here it would have been a draw. She was trying to go for the win, and she might just get a win if her opponent made a little bit of a mistake. But yeah, the trouble is that, when you forget the move order, even with preparations and all of those things, that when that happens, it's just very, very it's hurtful to some extent. But the thing is that really, really huge respect to her. She has been playing spectacular chess all year round, and this is what I absolutely adore about these genius prodigies. They try to force every game to try and go for the win, no matter the consequences, no matter the result. They don't care about the result. They want that win to happen. They want to be on the very top, and they want to shine in no matter the consequences, because they can be playing against Magnus and they still want to crush him. This is the mindset that you want to go by. This is the mindset these prodigies have been playing by, and that's why they are so successful. That's why she's so successful as well. She has 30 plus medals for India at just 19 years of age. That shows absolute class, phenomenal class. Playing in open section, phenomenal class. Actually going and playing against 2600 when your play has been, you're trying to improve your play, phenomenal class. This is the genius. This is the future of chess, and these are the people that's going to reach the absolute top, because they are making the right decisions. They are going for wins. They are not going for draws. They are grinding every game. They want to be able to get the win irrespective of the result, and this shows what phenomenal class is all about. Few more years she continues like this, and she's gonna be at the absolute top of her game. Not only that, she's gonna elevate her chess to a level that no one would have ever seen coming, and she's gonna win the candidates. She might even just win the World Chess Championship in the next go as well, and that would be absolutely spectacular for India, because India is looking for a world's women chess champion, and she just might be it. This is a world chess champion in the making. Doesn't matter the result here. She deserves an absolute round of applause for all the decisions she's taken, and yes, she's gonna go a long way, make India proud, make herself proud, and reach the absolute pinnacle of chess. And that's why she's one of the genius prodigies. So yeah, thank you all for watching. I'll be coming back with games like these, so stay tuned to the channel, stay updated, and I'll be seeing you guys very, very soon. Thank you very, very much for watching.